Let's get started, guys. Today we're doing a really useful webinar. We always attempt to be useful. This one's useful from the point of view of understanding how websites work. And we're talking specifically about the actual website. And I'll frame that in the context of the overall online performance of your business, which includes other things as well, tools that feed into the website particularly. But this is about how you actually want the website to be laid out. Now, for those of you who are new, and we have some new people today, welcome. I'm James Ramsden, Managing Director of PetPack. And PetPack are the online marketing experts for vets. So the origins of our business are that I'm a vet, and we started PetPack as an online service for our clinic and other practices in 2001 with a very small, simple product, and it's since grown to be a serious business providing services across Australia and New Zealand to veterinarians. So the key thing is that it's about communicating better healthcare to the local community around a vet practice, and that means we need to be good. PetPack needs to be good technically, so we need to have good understanding of technical tools. That's probably 50% of it. And the other 50% is the content, the actual message that goes to the pet owner or the farmer, helping them better understand their business or their animal and how better to look after those animals. And the direct benefit of this communication in the local communities that people do more at the vet. And as we are aware, many people do many things or not things with their animals, not including the vet. So basically, we want to encourage more people coming back to the clinic because they get a much better result. The animals are happier, the owner is happier, and then, of course, the business benefits, which is good. It's a virtuous cycle. In terms of today's webinar, we'll run for 30 minutes, and we may actually, if we can, we'll end it sooner if we covered everything. But if you have questions, please put them in. I'm really looking forward to hearing, seeing those questions. And let's have a look now. No questions to start with, so let's get started. So what we're going to cover today is the priorities when you're thinking about your website design. I had an interesting session at the AVA conference a couple of weeks ago in Brisbane with Alison Lambert, who was there for the VBG, the Vet Business Group. And one of the things that she was talking about was getting into your customer's mind. So what is it like for a client of yours or a potential customer to walk in the door or find you online, and what experience do they have? And that is very important to understand because that will influence, their experience will influence whether or not they come to you. So if we just go back a step and think about how people do find veterinary practices and what we know about people's perception of vets. So the way people find practices is word of mouth and drive-by, the two main sources. And that hasn't changed. In fact, when I graduated in 91, that's exactly how people used to find vet practices. The biggest change is that about 80% of them will go to their phones to call you. Now, that is huge, and that change is summarising what's happened over the last 30 years, but particularly in the last 5 years, we've seen a rapid growth in mobile usage. So basically 80% of local business search is now done on mobile phones or mobile devices. And we expect that to continue to increase as people become more and more used to using their phones for multiple things. And I had an interesting experience. So I'm coming back to customer experience. I had an interesting experience about that, seeing, we all know that people use their phones for lots of things, but I've been taking the tram a bit recently. I crashed my car, which is a minor crash, but the car's off the road, and I've been taking the tram, and it is fascinating to see how many people use their phones all the time. So it's literally everyone on the tram is using their phone the entire time. So when you think about what they're doing on those phones, there's so many things they can do with those phones that the trust relationship about how useful phones are is growing all the time. And Google, which controls 97% of all the search, and that means all the people that are searching for vet clinics, 97% of it's going through Google, is in control of what they see. So your website is one of three things that are really important to that process. So just to give you the overall view, you've got your website, which is responsible for about 40% of your calls. You've got Google My Business, which is responsible for about 50%. And then you've got AdWords, which will be responsible for about 10%. That's if you're using all those three things and you're doing them properly. Today we're focusing on the website because the website is the cornerstone. Even though it's only responsible for about 40% of the call, 30 to 40% of the calls, it's the cornerstone of Google's relationship with you. So Google understands who you are based on your website, and then Google introduces people to you based on what you tell Google through your website. So it's very important that you think about the long-term relationship with Google and how your website is set up. And what we're going to be covering today is when someone does come into the website, when they finally get to the website, how does it work for them? And it's very important to get yourself out of the veterinary clinic mindset and into a consumer mindset. So let's go through a couple of things we're going to cover today. Is the website priorities. What do you want your users to do? And a user is a technical term for a potential new client or a farmer or even an existing client, actually. Designing for mobile devices, why it's important. Why you shouldn't use image sliders. People like image sliders, meaning vets like image sliders, but we're going to talk to you about why you shouldn't use them. Making it easy to find the key information. And then a case against bells and whistles. Finally, photo quality, and then might have some questions. Any questions before we get stuck into that? Nothing coming up on the box, which is great. All right, and just feel free to drop in questions, and we will record this as well. So let's have a think about your priorities, and I'd be interested to know if you can start typing in what you think your priorities are for your website. And invariably what we find is that it's not obvious in the vet clinic person's mind what the priority is. So the sorts of, I'll say to someone, what's the priority for your website? And people say, oh, because we want clients to go to search information. And some people might say, oh, we probably just need a website because we need a website. And it is important to understand what that website's going to do. And now, when we drill down with practices, at the end of the day, the most important reason why they have a website is to generate business. Veterinary clinics are businesses, and in order for those businesses to operate effectively, consumers need to call them and make a booking. And so you'll see here we've got a list of actions that are important. And if we just take the two ends of the spectrum, you've got 35% here is make a booking. Now, that might be a phone call or a form, like an online booking form, which is the growth area and something which I strongly advocate from a consumer perspective, versus staff pages. And we've got 35% for make a booking versus 5% for read about your staff. Now, when practices are putting their websites together, they tend to put more effort into their staff pages than they do into making sure that the consumer can get on the phone quickly or make a booking. So while it's important to think about staff pages for various reasons, it's actually way, 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 way more important to make sure that the website makes it easy for them to contact you. In fact, it encourages them to contact you. The next area of importance is finding a list of your services. And what we find is that people don't go and review lots of lists of services, but what they do is Google will hook them up with the service. So for instance, you might have someone who's searching for dog grooming or dog training in your area, and they're not thinking about the vet clinic. But if you set your page up correctly, that page will be put in front of that person, and when they come into that page and they realize that you do dog grooming or dog boarding or training, and it's a vet clinic, they won't be put off by the fact that it's a vet clinic, even though they weren't thinking about a vet clinic for that service, and they'll call you. So that's another way, really, of getting business. But reading detailed information about your services is not something that people tend to do. Reading about staff, they tend not to do it. But asking a question is something they will do. And we're seeing that there's quite a growth in questions. Now, the recent US report on millennials, which was in DVM just recently, show that one of the key things about millennials, which is really your growth area for new clients, is about asking questions. So the sort of things you want to be thinking about doing is running a chat service, and really, you know, there's not a lot of practices doing that, but it's something to think about for the future. And then lastly, we have blog, reading your blog. Now, not many people will read your blog. However, if you write your blog strategically, so you're targeting topics that you know people in the community are looking for, and these are often topics that they don't think about the vet for, they're thinking about the topic. So it might be bee stings or snake bite. Then Google will put people in touch with you because of this blog, and then they will call you. So this is feeding into calling. This is feeding into calling. So you can start to see that you've got 35%, 25%, 5%. That's a big percentage which is associated with generating business. Whereas these areas here are much less about generating business. Oh, of course, asking a question is about generating business. Now, with millennials, you might find that the question and answer process goes for a long time, and they may not actually buy something at the end, but you've got to go through that process to build a relationship and help them. All right, let's just check, see whether we've got any questions here. All right, so Shane's asked a question. She says, I keep forgetting to write our blog. Any tips on fixing this, or do Petpack write blogs? Good question, Shane. And so answering the first part of the question is that writing a blog is a lot of work. And I recommend you set a schedule, which from our point of view, we do it once a month. If you are forgetting to do it, you might say, I'm going to do it every 3 months. And you give yourself 1 hour, and in that time, you write the blog article, but maybe take up half an hour writing the article. And then for the rest of the time, you work out how you can distribute it across your other media. So Facebook, Instagram, newsletter. And we have for Petpack clients, we have a content timetable and schedule, which we will give you, of course. And you can use that as a guideline. It's very useful. With regards to Petpack writing blogs, yes, we do. So we have an engagement service where we write blogs, as well as a range of other actions that take that blog and distribute it across other social media. So if you're interested in that, please let us know. Thanks for the question. Good one. All right, let's move on. So designing for mobile. Why would you design for mobile? And look, it might seem pretty obvious because people use mobiles, and here's our numbers. You know, 30% are using desktops, 60% are using mobile, and 10% are using tablets. And in some areas, we're getting 80%. So tablet plus mobile is 80%. Really, you need to make sure that your website fits on all these screen types, and there's still quite a lot of vets out there whose websites don't. And if you don't conform to mobile devices, you'll be penalized by Google, and which might sound harsh, but what Google is doing, to reiterate, is giving the customer the best result. And if they put up a website that doesn't look any good, or you can't work it on a mobile phone, the customer loses out, so Google won't put it up there. Now, you can do your own test with your website. If you search up Google mobile test, there's a link. You can put your domain into it. It's a one-click, one-action test, and it'll tell you whether or not you're doing well on mobile. What we do at Petpack is we build websites in a system that is constantly being updated, so that any changes to mobile structure is funneled through to the websites when they're live, and there are a lot of changes. So it's important to use a system like that. A bit of context on this too. The mobile market and the tablet market was pretty much non-existent 10 years ago, roughly, maybe a bit more, and advent of the iPhone changed that. There were phones before that where websites were being used on phones, but they were pretty clunky. So the iPhone interface really made it a lot easier for people. The other thing that's happened in parallel to that is the growth in data capacity, or not broadband, but wireless broadband. so that people can actually access a lot of data on their phones. The reason why everyone's on their phones on the tram is those two reasons. Their phones are better and the data access is a lot better. And we will remember how hard it was to get data not long ago. So it's getting better all the time, which basically means that people are increasingly doing things like looking for a vet when they're not in the office. They're doing it when they're walking around, driving around, sitting on the couch. And that's why you need to be visible on mobile. All right. Here's something that's comes up a lot for us is image sliders. Our image slider is something which zooms backwards and forwards. And let's just check the So Antonio, I'll come back to you about your question about AdWords. That's a good question. Let's get back to that. So image sliders, they seem like a good idea, but an image slider is something here which is going to whiz across the page. So this, you log into the website, you see this, and then it whizzes across, and there's another thing that comes up. And we used to use them. In fact, some of our older websites still have them. But with the advent of mobile, particularly, they've become really cumbersome and not even used on a mobile screen. So none of our new websites do rotating banners, and we certainly encourage strongly people not to do it. So, and we'll have a look at some examples of websites and how they're well structured, so you can see. So basically, there's a thing called banner blindness, where when this has been researched, you find that people just ignore this rotating banner and go straight down to the area where there's more information. And that's what this heat map area is telling you about where people are spending their effort. And the other thing too is it's very hard to get the information out of the banner if they're whizzing past too fast. So I wouldn't do them. Don't do them. If you want to listen to the experts, don't do it. So a bit of further information about that, because it's such an important issue. We've talked about the sliders keep rotating, which it's frustrating. People just don't get the information they need. But then no one actually then acts on those banners. So banners often have a click in them so that people can go through to something else. You'll find they don't actually get the clicks. So people are just going to other parts of the websites. All right, here's some do's. And in fact, before we get to do's, I'll answer your question, Antonia. Thank you for that. Antonia said, I just Googled my surgery on the phone and the new vet in another suburb came up first due to AdWords. And I think the question means, well, why? What do we do about that? So that is a very common occurrence now. It's an emerging occurrence. It's increasingly common, I should say, because AdWords allows clinics to be visible in adjacent suburbs, which is where we would target those ads for the first time. There's a couple of things you can do about that. First of all, when you're doing a search, it's important, Antonio, to make sure you're using private mode or incognito mode in your browser to make sure you're getting a truer sense of what's going on. But regardless, it's quite likely that ad is appearing regularly in your suburb, and that clinic will be picking up, if it's run correctly, somewhere between 20 and 25% of all the searches in your suburb. So what you can do about it is you can actually run an AdWords campaign yourself, targeting your suburb, and that will block those ads on the basis that Google wants to give the consumer the best result. And the best result for your suburb when it comes to vet is probably you, not the adjacent clinic. It doesn't mean that clinic's ads won't appear, but it's most likely yours will appear first, if on top of the list. We recommend the use of AdWords for surrounding suburb visibility, which is what we've talked about a lot. So most practices are invisible to their surrounding suburbs. So clinic clients that are searching from surrounding suburbs will not find the practice unless you're running AdWords. So that's why we recommend it, and it will increase your calls by 20 to 25% straight away, which is good. And also you can limit your expense and just target those areas you need to be targeting. Thank you for that question. That was really good. And we have another one. So thanks, Rachel. Good question. What about sliding images with no wording? Doesn't the cuteness factor make us feel warm and fuzzy? So there's two bits to that, Rachel. One is about sliding images and one is about the cuteness factor. So the latter part, the cuteness factor, is really important, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Having great images is vital for, as long as they're aligned with your brand, for showing people who you are. But the sliding images are just not effective anymore. And if I were you, I would not do it. And in fact, we'll have a look at some effective websites now, and you can see how the design is laid out. Particularly on mobile, you'll find that their sliding images are, there's no room, really. They're frustrating and often either don't work or cause problems. So let's have a look now at do make it easier to find key information. So we talked about what are the things that people want to be looking for. Well, practice phone number is number one. And when we're thinking about mobile, so we've got a desktop picture here and then we've got mobile. This is the thing we need to be focusing on. That's pretty much the most important bit of information on this home screen. And we'll talk about the other bits as well as their online booking form. Now, if you're considering online booking, I would strongly recommend it, because in this environment, you're sitting on a tram, for instance, and you know you need to do something with your pet, the last thing you want to do is ring them. In fact, I think having a phone number there only is an impediment to a lot of actions. You'll find that with booking online, you'll get about 17% will be new clients, and about 50% of them are done out of hours. So it's a really, really powerful service to have. And in conjunction with a website that works well, so you get a lot of traffic coming in your website, you'll get a lot of online bookings. Other things you want to have visible, pretty close, would be things like opening hours, a link to your services, the online booking, and then any special services you do that you know people will be looking for. And so we've got here, phone number appearing. This is on a desktop version. There's a phone number here, which is less important for being able to click it, because they're not going to click it and use it. They're just going to type into their phone, address, and opening hours. Here, the phone number here is clickable. So you click it, bang, they're going to ring you straight away. And then we've got the services down here as well. Let's have a look at a few other examples. I'm just going to change screens. Can you just tell me that you can see that okay? Just make sure you can. Maybe Shane, if you can just drop a little note in there. So this is a new site design, a very effective site. You've got very strong imagery. One of the key things about, just checking that you can see. Yeah, good. Thanks, Shane. Awesome. One of the really important things about clinic websites is you don't have a lot of time to convince someone that you're the right people to call. So having a strong hero image here, and the branding, the image, the phone number, or the ask a question, whichever things you think are important for your business, most people won't go any further. They'll just have a look at that, and that will really help them make a decision, particularly if they've been recommended to you and they're not sure if it's the right place to come. And the interesting thing is that whereas some people will come straight to this website from a search, a lot of them, a big number, will come from Google My Business or from ads, and they'll come in here because they're looking for a clinic and they haven't got enough information from Google My Business or from the ad, and this is where they'll be making their decision. So I recommend you choose strong images that reflect your brand and make it look modern and professional and caring. As we scroll down, then you can get into the other parts of the website that are useful for some people. So these guys got a tour. You can go in, take a tour through the clinic, which is a good idea, and something which you can add to your website really easily. And then they've got the location. Very easy to find it. Just going to go through a couple here. You can see here, this is the example we used before. Very strong personality-based clinic, this one, so people love this practice. And this is their brand. through YouTube as well as other social. It's reflected in the website. And then, of course, you've got your services down here. And I'm not showing you in the mobile view, I'm showing you in the desktop view, but everyone can look at this on their phones as well and see how they operate. This is a great way to include your staff. Now, we talked about staff pages before. I don't think you really want to spend a lot of time on your staff pages. You might want to put them in, but really you need to understand that hardly anyone will look at them. But this is a great way to put your staff front and center in front of people who are deciding whether they come. They'll look at that and go, I like those people. I'm going to call them. And that's the best way to use your staff presence, which is, we recommend that for all of our clients. This is a fantastic one. Huge team here. And obviously you have a challenge with an image like this on mobile, but you still get a big chunk of it on mobile. Once again, they look like great people. I'm going to call them. And I'm just going to show you another one too. Press home the point. Terrific photograph. Very easy for someone to go yes and then ring or ask a question or book online if that's what they've got. It's pretty straightforward. All right. Any questions about that? I'm going to go back to the presentation. So another thing we had on a list was don't use all the bells and whistles. So the sorts of things here that are really not necessary are video banners. So that's things like people that have got live. Okay, video banners is a good one because they look fantastic in some circumstances. It's where you've got actually a movie running in the banner, and it looks great, particularly on a broadband Ethernet connection on your desktop. But when you get onto mobile, often those video banners don't work at all, so you have to have a replacement image. So for the small percentage of people who are looking at you on desktop, we don't think it's worth doing it. Lots of embedded videos and flash animations, things that move. It's really not helping people. So, and in fact, it may actually slow down the load of your website, which means Google won't put you in front of people. So keep it simple. I know it can be frustrating, but keep it simple or hard to do that. And we've covered this really, but really use good quality and engaging photos, because that photo you can see there will tell the end user, the consumer, straight away what you like. You know, look at the care here with the animals. So would you trust these people? Of course you would. And that's what these people are making, these consumers are making decisions about. Would I trust these people with my animals, with their life? Ensure your photos are professionally shot, high resolution and well lit. Now, professionally doesn't necessarily mean you need to pay a professional to do it, but you need to get someone who's got a good camera who knows what they're doing. And that will make all the difference. It's worth it. And you can change your photos as many times as you want, but if you do go to the effort to get a team together, get a whole bunch of different combinations, different photos, make the most of that time, and then you can use that store over time to update your website. And of course, your Google My Business and your social as well. And then finally, in the last couple of minutes, you want to actually close the loop. You want to measure what's actually happening, which basically means getting access to Google Analytics and understanding the two main parameters. One is how many people visit, and the other one is how many people do the job you want them to do, which was, going back to our original slides, did they make a booking, did they make a call, or did they go somewhere else, and then did they leave? And you look at those numbers and you talk to your team about, you know, what you think about those numbers. We can share with you, and for PetPack clients, we'll tell you whether that's good performance or not. Because once you have that data, then you can decide whether you need to do more or you don't need to do any more. So closing the loop with measurement is the really important thing. All right, any questions? I've talked a lot. Thank you very much, everyone. It's been terrific having everyone on the webinar. If you have any further questions at the end, please email them through to me. You'll get a follow-up email with the recording, which you can share. And of course, as always, all of our recordings are on our website, and you can go back and review old webinars, which may cover a topic that you're looking for. All right, thanks very much, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Hopefully that was useful for you, and I'll speak to you again soon. Thank you. Bye.